It's time to strap in and get ready for the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Dan and Dirk are live in the studio today, ready to hear from you at 402-573-0590.
Hi, Dave Spain with MAV TV, which is your television destination if you're looking for motorsports. Radio, you found it. You're listening to the front stretch.
You know, ever since that moment, I think I've liked Dave Despain a little bit more. He was a nice guy.
Since you knew who he was.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Get more information about Joe's Karting at, again, joeskarting.com. Karting with a K. Dirk and I are live this weekend, and today, right now, from Knoxville, just down the road in Des Moines, Iowa. We're live thanks to Archer Purdue Auto Sales. Dirk, we've got no car today, but they're going to be open up at noon. People can go over and get yourself a nice new car.
Actually, right now, due to some construction right there in the area, they are not open at noon on Sunday here for, I'm not sure how many more weeks that's going to last, but yeah, they've got
Construction, you say?
They're doing a bunch of cable stuff. There for a while, they were having some real serious phone issues. They were having to run all the phones through one guy's cell phone, and they were having to take phone numbers and call everybody back. But, I mean, that's just some of the prices you pay for, improvements in your area sometimes.
Construction, I can't imagine that going on in Omaha.
Yeah, well, and they're nowhere near the interstate.
It's that's the price of progress. You pay to expand, and it's an annoying thing. But again, today's show brought to you by Archer Purdue Auto Sales. Find them online today, archerpurdue.com. Get more information on everything that they do today, and we'll be talking about them coming up a little bit more.
14227 S Street, right across the street from the Amazing Pizza Machine. 402-891-1100 by phone. And like I said, check them out online.
And we have a whopper of a show lined up for you today. First off, we're going to recap the results from last Sunday's race at Watkins Glen. Turn number 2, we will review the Knoxville Nationals, the biggest 8 days of racing, 10 days in total throughout of sprint car racing. I think easily to say that's the biggest weekend, the biggest 8 days of racing.
The sold out for the first time in 12 years, Knoxville Nationals.
Absolutely. It was one heck of a crowd last night, and a one partying crowd last night. It was loud.
We saw them in the grandstands, and we fought them trying to leave.
Didn't actually have to fight them. They were all nice people, but pretty well greased up, as people would say. Turn number 3, we'll review a couple of the NASCAR news and notes. There's been a lot of headlines that have popped up. And, Dirk, I think we can officially say we are in silly season, as there are several driver and organization changes coming up that are circulating around the headlines that could be happening, but we quite don't know yet, hence silly season.
Well, a lot of it, and I mean, we even tried to get the lowdown. Casey Kane was here with his car last night, and
funny he wouldn't give us that.
Yeah, there was a speculation. There's been a ton of speculation of them moving over to Toyota, but he would not confirm or deny that last night.
Turn number 4, we will preview today's race at Michigan. We will also preview Saturday night's race at Bristol Motor Speedway, and we'll get you set for next weekend's show. That is today's show to come. Again, brought to you by Archer Purdue Auto Sales. I want to review the results at Watkins Glen. Early on in the race, I was really surprised to see drivers were really pushing hard, and Eric Almirola was, as one of my favorite sayings, got the fuzzy end of that lollipop as he backed it into the final corner coming to the front stretch and coming to the start-finish line. And he ended up having not too bad of a day, but just not the day he could have had. And I believe he finished, trying to find him, 22nd on the day, 15 points for his effort at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, it definitely was no fault of his own. He just, it might be the jinx of that 10 car.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing Martin Truex Jr. He won this race last year, and he has been strong at the road courses. I think he's starting to become one of those drivers you might want to consider as a smart pick when we come to road courses. And he may even be a smart pick for the Charlotte road course coming up in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's people are going to have to pay attention if you're playing the fantasy game to practice times and stuff at that, because they've done a little bit of testing, but they have also changed the track just a little bit as a result of that testing, just because there were certain spots either the drivers as a whole couldn't maneuver very well. So in the interest of making a decent race, they went ahead and did a little course change. But, he's getting as good on the road courses as like maybe what Jeff Gordon was.
He ended up winning, he being Martin Truex Jr., winning stage 1. Chase Elliott brings it home in stage number 2, and Chase Elliott able to hold off Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez, and Eric Jones to claim his first victory of his NASCAR Cup Series career. And you were talking about, I think it was either last night, this morning, or moments ago, they all kind of fuzzed together for me in the last 4 hours nap that we've managed to get. But you were talking about all the stars that aligned, all the kind of the crazy stats that came together with him winning that race at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, there were some eerie similarities with his old pop Bill there, the Hall of Famer. He Bill's first Cup Series win before he became champion was on a road course. It was Chase Elliott's 99th start. I don't know what start it was for Bill Elliott, but they both had 8 runner-up finishes before they got their first win, which is, just kind of a couple odd scenarios. It also happened to be the Hendrick Motorsports 250th win as a team, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's a milestone. But he wasn't quite as happy in victory lane as what I thought he was going to be. He seemed more relieved that it was finally over.
I think my biggest gripe with that's going to be with Chase Elliott is that he is just a calm guy. NASCAR fans, especially me, we love that firecracker. The guy that he doesn't have to necessarily get overly emotional, but one of the big qualities of Dale Earnhardt Sr. was his quips. When he said something, it usually had a couple of different meanings, and it was poignant. But then you've got guys like Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson that are very excitable guys, and Kevin Harvick, who can get pretty fired up. And
Brendan Gaughan, that's the guy that's fun in victory lane.
Chase Elliott is very vanilla. He's not a real excitable guy, and if you want an example of how vanilla he is, go watch his victory lane speech at Watkins Glen, and go watch his post-race interview at Martinsville after Denny Hamlin moved him out of the way for the win. There's not a lot of difference between the two, and there should be other ends of the spectrum. He's just a very vanilla guy, which, as a critic of the sport and as an observer of the sport, it's not the greatest thing for the future, because fans love that spice that NASCAR drivers bring.
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of spice, after Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, he just seemed more relieved last week, to finally get that, 99 race monkey off his back. It wasn't 460 races like Michael Waltrip, but, he's got a lot more wins in his future.
Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, right? So again, Chase Elliott gets the win. Martin Truex Jr. comes home second. Kyle Busch third. Daniel Suarez fourth. And Eric Jones fifth. A lot of young guns up in that top 10, including Kyle Larson, who finished sixth. Jamie Mack seventh. William Byron eighth. Kurt Busch ninth. And Kevin Harvick a top 10 finish.
The different strategies throughout the race was kind of interesting. I had actually picked Chase Elliott in the Fantasy League for this weekend, but was very disappointed with him running I don't know if he was second or third, but everybody started pitting before they closed the pits there at the end of the first stage, except I think there were 6 cars that didn't, and Truex happened to be one of those. So that's why he got the stage win, but he was still right up there racing for the win till he ran out of fuel with a half lap to go.
Right.
Where Chase Elliott had pitted, Kyle Busch pitted from the lead, with 2 laps to go in the first stage, and he had it in the bank. He had, like a 7 or 8 second lead.
Yeah. And this is something that they've been doing for years that, I correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it started at Watkins Glen, was working the race backwards. And with the stages being created a few years back, it has affected other races to where they don't work the race backwards as much as they used to. But at road courses, and especially at Watkins Glen, they will work that race backwards, and they'll take a 10th place stage finish if it means it's setting them up for the win.
Well, and some of these guys, they weren't even in the top 10. They weren't getting any points just but yeah, they're racing for the win at that point, and only the win.
Yeah.
But I think they originally started setting races up backwards at races where there's a lot of cautions.
Yeah.
That's where they really started working on that. But the road courses, there's, I think, what was that race the other day? 79, 80 laps, something like that.
At Watkins Glen?
Yeah.
90.
90 laps. Okay. So, it's not like you've got 200 laps for Daytona or you've got 500 laps at Bristol. With only 90 times of going by the pit box, it's a little bit different. You have to have a different strategy.
Absolutely. Great race at Watkins Glen. Once again, the fans enjoyed it. Sold out crowd. That's something you don't get to hear a lot about these days, but Watkins Glen is one of those tracks that's been selling out consistently over the last few years.
It's a unique situation. I mean, it's from what I understand, I never had to work a race there, but from what I understand, the cell phone service is not very good in upstate New York. And,
much like it is at Knoxville Raceway when there's 26,000 people.
Right, yeah. I mean, it wasn't good last night. We saw some radio guys that were trying to announce the race.
Poor guys.
Oh, they were
I felt
struggling.
for them. I felt for them. Anyways, so great race at Watkins Glen. The next road course will be on the list will be at the Charlotte Roval. So that'll be really interesting to see. I'm curious to see how that plays out because it's a brand new surface, brand new everything. And you could talk about practicing on that all you want to, and I think NASCAR was really smart that they went and had drivers actually compete on it because they found a couple areas that the teams were fudging on a little bit with the way the course was set out, so they had to redesign the course. So practicing back and forth and doing some tire tests and different things with a couple of cars and then sending a full field of cars down there to do some testing really pointed out a couple of areas they got to do some tweaking on. So this coming race coming up in a couple of weeks will be really interesting at the Charlotte Roval. Well,
and outside of a few places where they changed, you mentioned a new surface. I don't think a lot of that surface is very new at all. They've run like some IMSA races and stuff like that on that course.
Right.
But those cars are designed a little different. They're several hundred pounds lighter. They use a bigger tire. So they drive a little different. I think they just found out with the extra weight and the smaller tire with these cup cars that some of these corners, they just couldn't negotiate them. They just weren't friendly.
Yeah, I just meant that it's a new surface for them to drive on.
New circuit.
With that circuit. Thank you. That's a better way of putting it. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in turn number 2. We will review last night's races at the Knoxville Raceway for the 410 Nationals. We'll get a couple of audio clips from a couple of the top finishers, and then we will move into the NASCAR news and notes in turn 3, and we'll preview Michigan and Bristol coming up in turn number 4. Big show still to come. Lots to talk about. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
Dan and Dirk are rolling into turn 2 with a little attitude on the front stretch.
This is Jack the Gasman Dover, and you're listening to the front stretch.
Yeah, we got to sit with Jack the Gasman Dover last night a little bit with the SSS Motorsports team over at Knoxville Raceway for the finale of the Knoxville Nationals. And learn some interesting information. Jack's got a little insight on some stories that may be developing in the next 6 to 8 months that we'll have to bring to you. But I think the biggest one I was kind of surprised about, he's not going to be racing the Race Saver Nationals at Eagle Raceway coming up Labor Day weekend. Instead, I don't blame him What was it? What is it?
20,000
to win at the Race Saver Nationals, like 15 or 2,500 to win, as opposed to I think he's going to go up to Jackson Motorplex in his 360 for the possibility of 20,000 to win, and that's if he can sweep all 3 nights of the Jackson Nationals. So yeah, the gas man not going to be in attendance at the Race Saver Nationals, but still I think last I heard from Stan Caesar, right around 100, or I think he's about 110 cars pre-registered. I know that number's not correct, but it's in that vicinity. So let's recap the results at the Knoxville Nationals. Dirk, we only got to come down for the 1 day of it. I mean, it's at a big 8-day event. I was lucky enough, talking about Stan Caesar again, he coerced me into driving down last Thursday night during the 360 Nationals, sitting up in a suite. Oh, it was terrible. And watching the Thursday night races, so I at least got to see 2 nights of racing at the Knoxville Nationals. But I mean, what a great event! I mean, how somebody could be a fan of dirt racing or sprint car racing and have not been to this race yet, it just baffles me.
Well, you only got to come to 2 out of the 10 nights, but I guess you went to the first night and the last night?
Yeah.
So
I bookended it.
If you just tell people you went to the first night and the last night, they're going to think you were there for the whole time.
I'm not in the habit of misleading people.
You're not?
No.
Why? You've got all these people thinking you're a radio personality, so...
Well, I am, but I'm not good at it. I have a personality. I'm on the radio. Anyways, a great night of racing last night. A D main, C main, B main, and an A main that set up the 25 car field.
Well, that B, C, B, and A would be A's anywhere in the country on any given night.
Oh my God, the cars that were involved in those were just insane. And I was. Everybody was in heaven. And like we talked about, I think we talked about it on this, sold out crowd. And 28,000 roughly, how many sold tickets. And then you've got everybody that's in the infield. The Hall of Fame doesn't count, and that's another 2,500 tickets or so. And then everybody sitting at home watching. I mean, it was probably reaching close to the millions that watched that race last night.
How about the Brian Clausen Tower? Do they count the seats?
I don't believe they do.
I don't know. That's why
because
I was
think
asking.
that's a separate ticket sales, separate organization that benefits from that. But a great operation with the Raceway to be able to do that. And what a beautiful area. We next year when we come down, we're gonna have to spend some time going through that Brian Clausen Tower.
But they did no work to the track at all last night during the races, which I like. Because then, they go out in between these other features and guys get the hot lap and everything, The A feature guys, hot lap between the C and the B feature. And they had a little bit of an idea what kind of track they were going out to, which really helps the racing.
Yeah. And like we talked about, great race, great night of action. And Kyle Larson, we were talking to a couple of people, anybody we could think of, as we were walking around asking who they thought was going to be the race winner. Obviously, Donnie Schatz was one of the top contenders, winning 10 Knoxville Nationals, working on his 11th, and he was starting outside row 2, just right outside Kyle Larson. And but Brad Sweet had been fast all weekend. In the Carson Mercado that is filling in for Jason Johnson after he passed away in that 41 car. They've been saying he's very fast. So, and I was even hearing some Logan Schuchart people saying that. And then after the B feature finished up, David Gravel kind of popped up in a lot of people's opinion of somebody that could win the Knoxville Nationals, but not a lot of guys. And we talked to Terry McCarl about this last weekend. Not a lot of guys are able to come out of the B and win that because it's such a strong field. Well,
and we talked to Logan before the race last night, and he says, I've got 2 A features, 2 25-lap A features. So, because we were asking him if he was a fan of the break, and he goes, I am tonight. He says, I'm going to use it up. I'm going to use it up for 25 laps, and then I'm going to use it up again.
And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the format, it is a 25-lap feature, and then right as they're about to complete...
It's a 50-lap feature.
It is... I'm sorry, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's a 50-lap feature, and right as they're about to complete the 25th lap, they throw the caution. All the drivers are then bunched back up together. They come down pit road, and they have a 3-minute stop that they can change anything they want to on that car. They'll use it. They have to fill up the tank because they'll burn through every bit of those every ounce of that tank, especially if it is a yellow flag heavy feature for the second half. We didn't see that last night. We saw a red flag during the second half of that feature.
And we saw one red flag during the first half.
Right.
That was it.
So they'll fill up. They'll usually change tires. They're able to change shocks if they have to. They can adjust wings. They can make repairs to the car that may have popped up during the first 25 laps. And then they all go back out and they're able to they continue their race. And there's a little bit of concern. They talked about it in the drivers' meeting with the parade lap and all the fireworks that went off and all the smoke, that they would continue to take too many parade laps and run some guys out of fuel, which is something they're very, very cautious about, because they sure hate to have all the pomp and circumstance and all the festivities interfere with somebody's ability to win $150,000.
Well, they were very specific in the drivers' meeting talking about the use of the fuel, and that's actually what the break is at the halfway point. And they were specific in saying if we get a caution at lap 23, 24, we'll go ahead and put the halfway stop there instead of actually waiting till lap 25. But fuel is a mandatory thing at that. There is no way you're running 50 laps at Knoxville with the 30-gallon fuel tanks these guys are running.
Right.
So everybody was putting in 20, 22 gallons of fuel at that 25 lap stop, and nobody ran out of gas. But there is such a disparity at this track where Sweet was running the low line. I don't think he went high except maybe to pass one or two lap cars all night.
Yeah.
He was stuck on the bottom, and the guys that were trying to buzz around the top, you're going probably closer to 3/4 of a mile around the top. Mm-hmm. And if you do that for 50 laps, you're going to burn a ton more fuel, which we see in the 100-lap late model race coming up next month, a year or 2 years ago. But last year they put a fuel stop in on it too.
Yep.
So the fuel stop is definitely necessary.
Brad Sweet, drop of the green flag, absolutely the fastest guy.
Oh.
And that kind of worried me a little bit. When you've got these bigger races, a lot like the late model nationals at I-80 Speedway, somebody that can lead early and be very fast kind of makes you worry, is their car set up too good now to where when the track and the car changes later, they're going to be a second off the pace as opposed to a second above the pace? Well,
it's kind of like a jackrabbit, a rabbit in the hare type deal. He just took off, and that was the question that was probably answered at the lap 22 when Rico Brule, our little buddy, he rolled. Really sporting a mullet, though. Oh, I mean, he has the mullet of all mullets right now.
That guy, I mean, he was rocking that mullet. I mean, he was definitely business in the front, party in the back. That guy, he's got style.
But he had style upside down. He had his hair in his eyes there for a little while last night. But that was lap 22. They did not do the halfway stop at that point. But when they restarted, Sweet still had it rolling.
Yeah, he was able to pull away really fast and blistering lap times. Even though his fastest lap was on lap 3, he continued to pace the field by 2-3 tenths. But even though late as the race was winding down, Schatz and Larson were starting to reel him in just a little bit until that final caution flag. But just an incredibly fast car. And we saw it. He came in, and he'll talk about it in the post-race interview. Very minuscule changes to that car. They went right back out again, and the thought was, is this where Schatz is going to make his move? Because it's constantly, when you come to the Knoxville Nationals, you're just waiting for Donnie Schatz to make his move.
Well, with Kyle Larson and Donnie Schatz running second and third, actually Larson was second and Schatz was third when they restarted the second half. He took off, and he was still stuck on the bottom. Like I said, he stayed there. He had to run 47 laps on the bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 laps up top passing cars. But Kyle Larson took the top side. He said, I can't pass him where he's at. I got to go somewhere else. And there was one little bobble, and Larson scooted right on by him. The crowd went absolutely bananas, just as they had in the first half of the race when Larson went by Donnie Schatz.
Yeah. And a great battle. I think we're skimming over, to my fault, I think we're skimming over a little bit. Amazing battle between Donnie Schatz and Kyle Larson when when Brad Sweet was out just running away with this thing. Kyle Larson and Donnie Schatz were trading slide jobs back and forth, and then eventually Kyle's car slowed down just a little bit as Donnie got a little bit better as the race went on. And we find out later on Kyle Larson why he may have slowed down just a little bit, but to his credit, he doesn't think it was a big factor. But anyways, we're getting down to the end of the race, and the laps are winding down, and you and I are about to head to victory lane, and out comes the red. And this was Brad Sweet had about an 8-9 lead. I'm watching the lap times on Race Monitor, and Donnie Schatz is catching him by 2/10, and then Brad would be better by 2/10. And so they were trading lap times back and forth. That
was because of the traffic.
Schatz was catching him ever so slightly, and then the red comes out with another car flipping in turns 3 and 4. I believe it was Ian Madsen that time that brought out, or no, it was Kerry Madsen that brought out the caution that time and brought out the red flag. So it stacks it back up, and my heart just broke because again, we go back to saying it time and time again. You're waiting for Donnie Schatz to make his move. The red flag's out. They're going to be stacked back up again. This is the opportunity Donnie Schatz is going to see it, or is going to get the win, and he's going to walk away with his 11th straight, or his 11th Knoxville Nationals, and Brad Sweet's going to walk away with a heartbreak and half a paycheck.
His comment wasn't in our interview, but in the general interview there, when they were talking to the 3 podium finishers, somebody asked him, what were you thinking then? He goes, I was thinking this is a heat race on Saturday night and there's 2 to go.
Yeah.
He goes, I wasn't trying to freak myself out or put a bunch of pressure on herself. And I looked at Dan and I said he was driving around the track going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap.
He said it a couple of times too. I think I held my breath those last 2 laps.
Yeah, he said I didn't breathe.
Just imagine the pressure. This is the biggest race for sprint car fans. You've got 2 laps until either 150,000 or 75,000.
Sprint car fans, sprint car drivers.
And the best of the best modern drivers is lined up right behind you, wanting that $150,000 payday also.
Again.
So the amount of pressure that was lined up behind Brad Sweet, and I got to give him 100% credit. He didn't crack.
Nope.
Not one iota. He held his line. He drove his race. He'll talk about it in our post-race interview with him. He did an absolute fantastic job. Yeah. We're going to switch over to third-place finisher Kyle Larson, who had a very strong day, started third, finished third, but a very strong car and a very solid run at the Knoxville Nationals. Started off by asking Kyle about his great battles with Donnie Schatz and Brad Sweet throughout that race.
Yeah, it was a fun race from the drop of the green. I wanted to battle Donnie hard, and he's just so good. So, if you can any bit, shake him up or get him to use his tires up anymore, because he's really good about doing that to you, So if I could do anything to just race him hard and get him doing something different was my game plan. If I couldn't win, and was able to get by him there before the break, and then get by Brad after that, and felt like I was pretty good, and then Brad was able to just rip right back by me. So Brad had definitely the car to beat all week and did a really good job with it, so a lot of fun.
You talked about in the press conference and also in some of the post-race interviews that your wing had been sliding back, and you noticed it a little bit too late. Do you think that was the big difference in you winning this race?
No, I don't think it was a big difference. Obviously, it didn't help me. But I don't think it kept me from winning. I felt like my car would have probably drove a little bit better, and maybe I could have had a better shot. But Brad was so good. I felt like I got a good rhythm going there before that red flag, and got kind of close. Me and Donnie were both catching Brad pretty fast, and Donnie was moving around a little bit more, and I could finally start hitting the bottom a little bit better. But then I just didn't have enough laps there at the end once I got my wing back forward.
There was a big push last year on social media to let Chip Ganassi let you run this race. Didn't seem to have to do that this year. Is he convinced for quite a while that Kyle Larson's going to be at the Knoxville Nationals?
I hope so. Yeah, I really got no flack from him this year, so it was awesome. I'm just very thankful that Chip allows me to come do this. He doesn't have to, but he knows how important it is to me to get to come and run the biggest sprint car race in the country. So just very thankful for that, and he knows I appreciate it.
By flack, do you mean that big paw upside the back of the head like he gave you last year?
I hope I get a paw upside the head tomorrow after we win.
Well, I was talking to Denny Hamlin earlier. I saw you brought him with you tonight, and I was asking if Ricky had a car for him to drive, and he said his boss would kill him if he got behind the wheel.
Yeah, I think Joe's a little different. I think Joe went through the whole everything with Tony there for a long time with how busy Tony was. So I'm sure that burnt Joe out on extracurricular racing. But Denny's a good racer, and we've turned him into a really big sprint car fan. So I'm glad that he came here, and I'm sure he enjoyed it. So hopefully we can get him back to many more, and maybe we can talk him into being a car owner or something someday.
Yeah, and that's something worth bringing up. I think Kyle is doing a fantastic job because there's a lot of money still up in NASCAR. It's not what it used to be, but there's still a lot of money up there. And Kyle's very smart that bringing these guys down. Last year he had Ryan Newman and Ryan Blaney and a couple of other guys down here that he just brought down to come down and watch, hang out in the pits, go sit up in the suites, and watch the race and experience this thing dirt racing is. That and now he brought Denny Hamlin down this year, and obviously Casey Kane was down here with his team, and so I think Kyle is bridging the gap where I always gave Tony Stewart the credit of bridging the gap between the race groups. There is a definite dirt track fan and NASCAR fan, and a lot of times they don't cross over. And I think Tony did a very good job of bridging that gap, and I think Kyle Larson is doing a very good job of bridging the gap for the drivers, which is the key to the next phase of getting dirt racing to be as big as NASCAR.
Well, you could tell by the cheer when he passed Donnie Schatz there in the first half of the race last night. You know, everybody loved it, and you know the guy's a likable guy.
Yeah.
You know, as we talked, you know, after the interview last night, you know, he didn't make up an excuse and say, you know, well, that wing cost me the race. He said just the opposite. He knew it hurt him, but he wasn't going to blame him not winning on that wing issue. You know, we started the interview actually before you even had the mics on, and I was asking, you know, do we need to send thank you cards to Chip?
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, that'd be nice, you know, but he said, I don't think it's necessary. And, you know, then we asked him about it during the interview.
Let me back up. I just said that to get dirt racing as big as NASCAR, I meant commercially, not popularity. I think with dirt racing being the grassroots all over the United States, it probably has more fans and is viewed by more people, but commercially NASCAR is way more successful than dirt racing is, and I think that it's just simply a bringing it to the masses that'll help change that. So I do apologize if I offended anybody with that comment. That's not what I meant. I meant it commercially rather than fan base wise.
But he is definitely the crossover face right now, and will continue to be. But he's also making it a special event by only doing it once or twice a year. He's not, you know, out running dirt, you know, every weekend they're off, or on Tuesday and Wednesday night every week. You know, we were even asking Denny if he'd been in a sprint car yet, and he said no. You know, but he had driven in the Prelude to the Dream that Tony Stewart used to put on. So he's got a little bit of dirt late model experience, but he seemed to be having a real good time last night.
Donnie Schatz with a very fast car, not able to get the win. We weren't able to track him down, but Dirk, you made the observation that was probably the happiest we've ever seen Donnie Schatz finish second.
Well, and if you put it into perspective, how could he be upset by not winning when he never had the lead?
Yeah, he never really had a chance. I mean, he had a chance there with 2 to go.
Well, when they went across for the white, he was on Sweet's bumper, except he was on the outside of the track and Sweet was on the low line.
Yeah,
you know, but yeah, he was there. If Sweet would have bobbled, Schatz would have won.
Yep. And it was a great battle between the two, and a clean battle. You know, last time we saw Donnie Schatz finish second was to Jason Johnson, and I think he was a little bit upset by the way Jason Johnson ran him into turn 1 to take the lead away from Donnie Schatz late in that race. And so he was a little bit upset about that aspect, but there wasn't that aspect this time. I think him and Brad raced each other very clean, and Brad won that race fair and square with the faster car.
And it was quite comical as we were setting up to interview Brad. The 3 of those guys, when they were up on the podium, were joking back and forth, and Brad was having a few beers and said he was going to party and, you know, have a good night. And when Schatz was leaving...
No, that's actually during the interview. Don't ruin that. That's during the interview.
Okay. It actually hit in the interview. All right.
Let's get into that Brad Sweet interview. We actually popped over and got to sit down and talk with him. And I just started off by saying, and totally in jest, if he could get just a little bit excited about this win.
I'm honestly so excited. I feel like it's a dream, you know, like it was just so surreal. And I've been nervous all damn day, and just because I knew we could do it. I think if I wasn't nervous, I would feel like I wouldn't have been able to do it. But It took every last ounce of my being to get this thing done tonight, and I think I'm just wore out a little, but I'm going to celebrate a lot tonight.
Had a lot of people tell me before the race that Kyle Larson was their favorite. They liked Logan Schuchart, obviously Donnie Schatz. And when you popped out to that early lead, I thought, oh no, he's leading fast early, which is always spelling doom towards the end of the race. But not only were you fast, but you held on for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was very confident that I needed to keep the lead. And you don't want to get behind Donnie Schatz or Kyle Larson ever. So you always want to stay ahead. So when Kyle was passing, I was a little nervous, but luckily he was running the top, and I knew I could run the bottom much better. So I just stayed with my line and was able to get the job done.
Like I said, incredibly fast car those first 25 laps. The pit stops comes. Did you guys make any adjustments to tighten it up, free it up for the last 25?
Put a quarter turn in the left rear and let her eat.
That's all you needed to do. And then under that red flag, we had the 2 laps to go. You had about a half a second, 0.8 lead over Donnie Schatz, coming to 2 to go, and then the red flag comes out. How don't you dive inside your head and drive yourself crazy?
I don't know, honestly. I just really don't have a great answer because I was able to keep myself calm enough, and I don't really know how. I think I literally held my breath for 2 straight laps. I told myself, you're leading the heat race with 2 to go. Don't look at the flag. Look out where you're going, and I just did, and I did everything right with my hands and feet, just good enough because I could hear him on my outside, and I just got to that line, and I was just so thankful. I couldn't believe it that I got to the checkered flag. It's an unbelievable feeling.
Does it make it sweeter that you held off one of the best at Knoxville?
Absolutely. You don't ever want to – I mean, if you're going to win a Knoxville Nationals, you want to be able to hold off the best. Why? You bail me out.
Donnie Schatz just said, if you're in jail, don't call me. There's a little party in the 49 pits tonight.
Absolutely. We're going to celebrate this one. This is a dream come true. Thanks, Misha. And, we got a lot of people to thank and go celebrate with, so we're going to go do that.
And I totally said that in jest of him being excited. That is the most excited I think I've seen somebody since Jason Johnson.
Yeah, he was. He did the wing dance. Mm-hmm. Got covered with confetti, and
even when you and I were standing there at the weigh scale going into Victory Lane, could you hear him screaming over his car engine?
Absolutely.
That's the one thing that's missing from our Facebook Live video was being able to pick up him screaming in that car. And I thought something was wrong with him as I focused and looked in the car, and you could just see his helmet and his hands and everything's just shaking as he's going across the scale.
Just like you're doing right now for all our fans that can't see anything.
Sometimes I forget we're on the radio, which is a good thing. We both have the face for radio. So that was the race. It was Brad Sweet gets his first Knoxville Nationals win. He caps it with a big 3 days dominating the racetrack, winning the Capitani Classic, winning his opening night on Thursday night to qualify, and then coming out and leading nearly every lap. I think he probably led 45 of the 50 laps.
He led more than that.
46,
Kyle Larson,
47?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe 47. Kyle Larson might have led 3 laps. He made that bobble. Kyle got by him. But like Kyle said, his wing was creeping backwards. He said it was doing it the whole race and just tightened him up. And, it was just like 2 laps, no mistakes, and he was just right back by him.
Great dominating win for Brad Sweet. Congratulations to him. He's going to be one sore guy today. I imagine he may not even be asleep yet.
Yeah, he's still probably going. He was pretty wound up.
We were complaining about having a 4-hour nap earlier, and that boy's still running hard. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3. We're going to talk about a couple of the news and notes that have been circulating around the NASCAR garage. I think it's safe to say silly season is in full swing. We'll tell you why coming up next on the Front Stretch.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food. Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Feather the brake and let her eat.
I love that line. Absolutely love that line. And one of the great quotes from Brad Sweet, your 2018 Knoxville Nationals winner. Coming into turn number 3, and it's time to cover a couple of the NASCAR news and notes. And Dirk, we've been talking about it. I think silly season is in full swing. And why I say that is because Chip Ganassi is rumored to be exploring some different options for 2019. Jamie McMurray's contract in the one car up at the end of this year, and it has been rumored that he has been discussing an opportunity with Kurt Busch to come over. And we also saw some news stories break this week that Monster Energy and Kurt Busch are probably going to be leaving Stewart-Haas Racing at the end of the year, although Stewart-Haas Racing, Kurt Busch, and Chip Ganassi Racing have declined to comment on any of these rumors circulating. This is the same thing we saw last year. Kurt Busch was linked with every single one of the rides, and I think it was kind of a ploy to get Stewart-Haas Racing to come back to the negotiating table and to sign another one-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just old hat, you know. If you don't have the common 3-year deal, you know, you got to do what you got to do to get paid. And Ganassi's one of the few that always seems to be in the rumor mill when somebody's out there floating around a little bit. Like I said, we tried to talk and get some stuff out of Casey Kane last night. We were unable to do it.
Yeah, with the 95 Levine Racing family.
Yes, and that was one thing we should have asked him. Is it Levine or Levine?
Yeah. He may not even know.
Yeah, he might not.
Because it doesn't seem like Levine family knows.
But, yeah, like I said, you know, all the scuttle's been that they're going to Toyota, but he would not confirm that. And matter of fact, when I said, is he... you know, well, at least you'll have a ride, right?
Yeah.
And he really didn't say yes on that either, which was kind of disappointing because I think he's good for the sport.
But coming back to Chip Ganassi Racing for 2019, like you said, they've been rumored to be having different people in that car, in that one car, replacing Jamie McMurray for the last couple of years. And good for Kurt Busch if he can find himself another ride in another location. And it sounds like, if the rumor mill is true, and we all know about rumors, where there's smoke, there's fire, but you can't really take all of the rumor at its 100% face value. There's usually a little bit of truth to it. I wonder if Monster Energy would be moving with Kurt Busch, which one of the stories that broke this week said that's likely to happen. And I wonder who would fill in with that fourth car at Stewart-Haas Racing if Kurt Busch ends up leaving, because that's going to be a big sponsor check heading out the door.
Exactly. That's, you know, the first thing, you know, we were talking a little bit last night. We've always thought that Cole Custer was the heir apparent there. But right now I think his ride is being sponsored, you know, through Haas Automation. So there really wouldn't be a huge sponsor coming through. It might be a spot that if he does move up into the Cup Series, they'll take that Xfinity budget and dump it into the Cup car, and there will be no more Haas Stewart-Haas car in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, and keep in mind, remember when that 41 car was created, there was a little bit of turmoil around that because one of the halves of Stewart-Haas Racing wanted the 41 car, the other half didn't. Gene Haas wanted that car, and Gene Haas paid for the funding for that car for the first couple of years until some sponsorship could be added. Kurt Busch in that 41 car wouldn't exist if Tony Stewart had his 100% say. They had just signed Danica Patrick. They didn't want to expand to well, according to Tony, he didn't want to expand to a 4-car team that quickly. At the time, it was Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman. They just signed Danica Patrick, and then all of a sudden, Gene Haas goes out and signs Kurt Busch to be the fourth driver. And I think Tony was a little bit concerned about expanding to a 4-car operation at the time. And I remember one of the statements Gene Haas said, "Don't worry, I got the bills taken care of. You just worry about the drivers." And that was kind of the end of that whole conversation and controversy. So the sponsorship aspect, I would assume that as long as Gene Haas is still happy with Kurt Busch as his driver, you wouldn't have to worry about if Monster Energy was leaving, that Kurt Busch would have to be leaving. But Kurt has now gone through this 2 years in a row, and I think that since it happened last year, and now it's happening again this year. Something's a little bit unpleasant between the organization and the driver, and I think they're exploring options of moving on to a different driver.
Well, I think one thing that was unpleasant was a few weeks ago, I don't remember if it was Chicago or Kentucky, where Kurt Busch showed a little bit of disappointment of Kevin Harvick taking a stage win away from him. Mm-hmm. And Kevin Harvick said every point's important.
That's the eternal one-sided joke, the eternal one-sided conversation. It's always that whatever benefits me the best. And Kurt Busch was upset because his teammate took away a point, but that's racing.
Yeah,
no fault to Kevin Harvick. That's what we want our drivers to do.
And in all honesty, if it would have been for the race win
mm-hmm.
and to get your teammate into the playoff, there might have been, a little bit of scuttle coming from the upper B. Hey, Kevin, let him win the race. Let him get in the playoffs.
I don't believe that at all.
Yeah,
not a Stewart-Haas organization, not a driver-funded organization, and certainly not to a guy like Kevin Harvick. If you've been a boss of Kevin Harvick's for as long as Gene Haas and Tony Stewart have, you know that is the dumbest conversation you could have with Kevin Harvick.
Well,
he will never give up a win to help anybody else out. If he's got a chance to win a race, he's going to win the race.
Well, and see, I don't see it that way because I think he could have taken Ryan Blaney out at Pocono a year ago and, gone for the win and put Ryan in the fence, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He let Ryan get his win. I honestly believe that if he would have had a teammate order come down, from the higher up and told him to we need Stewart or we need Kurt Busch in the playoffs, that he'd have backed off. But it wasn't for that.
The last organization that did that is no longer around. We talked about that on the way down.
They had a driver crash during the race. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't that he let the guy win. He
right, and he had
a little bit different deal.
He had absolutely nothing wrong with his car, and there was a radio communication of how's your arm feeling. Yeah. Oh, all of a sudden I can't turn. I'm in the wall.
Oh, no, he didn't hit the wall, though. All he did was spin on the front straightaway.
Okay. Well, he spun around. So, to what you're saying, the last organization that tried that got caught, and they're no longer around. I 100% don't agree that would ever happen again.
That's two different scenarios. I'm not saying Kevin Harvick would have spun himself out so he didn't pass Kurt Busch.
But Kevin Harvick would have purposely given up the win or the race to let his teammate in, and that's against NASCAR rules. That is against the 100% organization, the rule that NASCAR put in there. Anyways, let's move on to the next news topic because we're just going to fight about this all show long, and we got a lot of show still to get to. Driver changes possibly coming up at JTG Doherty Racing. Currently, they have Chris Buescher in the 37, AJ Allmendinger in the 47. But it sounds like there could be both drivers could be out of a ride at the end of this year, with Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick rumored to be moving up out of the Xfinity Series to take over those respective rides.
Well, you've got those two drivers. Preece has kind of been a phenom because he's not run that many Xfinity Series races. And the cars he has driven are for Gibbs. But Gibbs also has the terrible thing of having Christopher Bell around, So if he gets a ride opened up, it's Christopher Bell's.
Yeah.
If Toyota gets a ride opened up, if Furniture Row would say, hey, we're going to put another car back together, just like they did for Eric Jones a couple of years ago, you'd see Christopher Bell in it.
Yeah. And I'm going to move that. I'm going to move one of the storylines up. Barney Visser, president of Furniture Row Racing, made a statement earlier this week that basically said that we're in a, and I am paraphrasing this quite a bit, 5-Hour Energy announced earlier this year they're going to be leaving the sport, and that's a big sponsorship for Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 car. They sponsored 14 races this year for Martin Truex Jr., and that's a big sponsorship hole to fill in. So like you were kind of just getting there, if they're able to open up the 77 car again, well, now they've got to back up and worry about getting the 78 car fully sponsored. But Barney Visser did say, we are going to be competing full-time in 2019, even if we have to pay for the full funding out of my own pocket.
Well, he hasn't had to fund the car now for 2 years.
Right.
So, where he was funding it out of his own pocket. I mean, Furniture Row's big. If you ever go out to Denver, it's huge. And he could definitely afford, He could fund the whole car for a year or two, I'm pretty sure, just, out of the stuff he finds in the washing machine. But he'll pick up those 14 races and put Furniture Row on there. It's not going to be a big deal. More than likely, I would be surprised if he has to fund any more than 4 or 5 races out of his pocket. I think they'll pick something up.
Yeah, and that's an ever-growing issue with the sport of racing, not just NASCAR, is finding proper funding to keep people in a ride long enough for them to make a difference. And it's a little bit jarring to find out that our defending series champion and probably one of the more popular drivers right now, especially one of the drivers most popular on TV time, is having a tough time finding sponsorship issues. When you see someone like Jimmy Johnson in a year he's struggling, you understand that it's going to be hard for Hendrick Motorsports to find a top-tier sponsor to fill in on that 48 car with Jimmy Johnson not really making a lot of TV time, not making a lot of the news conferences, not making post-race victory lane stuff, all that kind of fun stuff that sponsors love to eat up. But Martin Truex Jr. is. I mean, he's still winning this year, finishing top in the stage points, still one of the top conversations. He's one of the big 3 right now, and they're going to have to fill in. Now, I can't really say they're having a tough time because we haven't even begun to work on that car yet for 2019.
They're pretty much working all the time to at least get somebody into the sport. Hey, be an associate sponsor for 8 or 10 races, get your feet wet in the sport type thing. But I don't know how much it caught them by surprise when 5 Hour Energy said we're going to go ahead and back out for a while. When Lowe's did it, to me, that was a surprise. But I think one of Lowe's issues, plain and simple, is as a nation, new home sales are really rocking and rolling right now as opposed to home improvement. Mm-hmm. So I think their overall sales might be down, and that might be why they aren't going to have the capital right now to stay involved.
It's one of those interesting things, and we're going to get a little bit off on a tangent here, but like Napa Auto Sales, they have been down considerably over the last 5 years because new car sales has been so high. And now new car sales has started to taper off a little bit, and we're starting to see used car sales return, which means in the next 2 or 3 years, Napa will start to see a return in their profits. So, if Napa can weather the storm and they continue to stay with NASCAR and all the different forms of auto sports that they sponsor, then I think we'll be in good shape. But you kind of in that same tone where when new home sales and new construction are dominant, the home improvement industry, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, they're all down a little bit over the last couple of years.
Well, and in the Napa instance, they also happen to be part of Michael Waltrip Racing when the thing we were talking about a little bit ago with the car spinning and everything, they kind of they took a hit with their popularity because of that happened, being associated with Michael Waltrip. So they're kind of soured on NASCAR at this point. That just didn't do them a whole lot of good. But
yeah, I think them heading over to Hendrick Motorsports and Chase Elliott was good for them too, because it's now a new fresh look.
Well, I mean, they happened to be on Sweet Sprint Car last night.
Yeah, they were heavy in that. Mm-hmm.
And, got the win. So, I mean, they got a ton of TV time last night. And, they're thinking that's a heck of a lot cheaper than what it costs to go on Sunday.
Yep. Moving on to the next story we're going to get to before we take a break. Speedway Motors Incorporated. A lot of you may not know that name, but they're the ones that own Atlanta Motor Speedway, Bristol Motor Speedway, Charlotte, Kentucky, Las Vegas, New Hampshire, Sonoma, and Texas, and I may have missed a couple in there, but they own quite a few of the tracks on the NASCAR circuit. Announced this week that they are going to be easing weather-related worries for NASCAR fans that buy a ticket. If you happen to buy a ticket at Atlanta Motor Speedway and the race rains out, then they will allow you to allow you to use that ticket at any one of their other tracks.
Correct.
It has to be a NASCAR track, and it has to be one of their tracks. That's one of the qualifying features that they were talking about in that news article you may have read. So you can't go and use it at Kansas Speedway because that's not a Speedway Motors track. Instead, you have to use it at one of the other tracks.
Well, and the fact that they said NASCAR track, Speedway Motors also owns several drag strips. They were the one that first started the 4-wide deal. Like they own the Las Vegas drag strip. They own the drag strip at Charlotte. They own there's one at Bristol, but Bristol's not 4-wide yet. So, yeah, you can't go to the drag race event with the NASCAR ticket, but you can go to another one of their NASCAR races. And if you're in that Bristol, Kentucky area and stuff, you do have several choices to make. You know, if you're in Las Vegas and have the ticket to Las Vegas race, you know, the next thing you're going to go to is try and get to Texas.
Right.
You know, so a little bit of travel involved.
If you missed, there's quite a few storylines that we didn't get to, including the reveal of the new Mustang that happened on Tuesday for Ford, and other stories that I'm trying to pull up on our Facebook page. You can always head over and grab that stuff off of our Facebook page, as well as replays of our show if you happen to miss any part of the conversation.
That Mustang's a good-looking car.
That's a beautiful-looking car. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4. We'll wrap this baby up by previewing Michigan and Bristol. We'll be back on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
Dan and Dirk are live for one last corner. Give them a call now at 402-573-0590.
Hi, this is Scott Bloomquist, driver of the number 0 car. You're listening to The Front Stretch.
Good.
You cut that off.
Just as I hit the start button, I thought, is that the one where he cusses at it, or is that the clean one? So, you know, dumb luck works out for me once again. Welcome back to the front stretch, handing it to turn number 4. Brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Just a couple more weeks left of bike nights on Wednesday nights. Their big toolbox giveaway for Classic Car Cruisins coming up on August 30th, so your opportunity to see that. And I've got it on good authority that there is a very good chance that Thomas Weeks, who is one of the founding members of Misfit Garage on Discovery Channel, is going to be at Quaker Steak and Lube on August 30th for the big giveaway, and just coming out and meeting and greeting and seeing different things. If you want to meet Thomas Weeks of Misfit Garage and of Gas Monkey Garage, you can head over to the Race Saver Nationals at Eagle Raceway. He's going to be coming up, and all 3 days he wants to come up and see what's going on with all the stuff going over to Eagle Raceway.
But don't get too close. He'll try and sell you a car.
Absolutely. So he's going to be doing an appearance down at Quaker Steak and Lube on August 30th. That's a pretty tentative, like 75% it's going to happen. We got a couple of details left to wrap up, and he is definitely going to be at Eagle Raceway for the Race Saver Nationals. All right, we want to talk about the results to get you set for today's race at Michigan. A lot of conversation last night with Kyle Larson, and after he was at the Knoxville Nationals last year, he goes over and wins at Michigan. From last year, he started 9th, ended up getting the win, led 2 laps to win that race, and finished 9th in Stage 1, 8th in Stage 2, 45 points on the day. Kyle Larson ended up getting the win. Martin Truex Jr. came home 2nd, Eric Jones 3rd, Ryan Newman 4th, and Trevor Bayne ended up finishing top 5. Kyle Larson a little bit harder this year. He started 9th last year, starts 17th today.
Yeah, they the body change is still wreaking havoc. You know, the Chevy teams don't want to work together and try and figure it out, so you know, instead of having 15, 18 teams working as one, they just, you know, they're struggling. That's all there is to it.
And so that's going to be today's race. Again, the picks are due at 1:30 for Michigan. And let me get your starting lineup. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch, row 1. Kevin Harvick, Eric Jones, row 2. Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman, row 3. Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney will round out your top 10 starters. Daniel Suarez starting from the back, and that looks like all of it that I can see. I didn't see any news headlines of anybody missing post-race qualifying, post-qualifying inspection or having any kind of issues, but make sure you stay tuned to the Front Stretch Facebook page to see if anybody has to start from the rear for today. And we got to say a big thank you to Archer Purdue Auto Sales again for bringing today's live show, for all they do for us this year and helping out with the show. We'll get more information on them, archerpurdue.com. And then, like we talked about, we have today's race at Michigan, and then we have Saturday night's race at Bristol Motor Speedway. I believe picks are due by 6 o'clock. Kyle Busch got the win last year over Eric Jones. Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, and Kurt Busch. Ryan Newman 6th, Trevor Bayne 7th, Kevin Harvick 8th, Kyle Larson 9th, and Ryan Blaney 10th.
It's your usual suspects at Bristol. Brad Keselowski is strong every race there. Sometimes doesn't have the luck there. Kyle Busch is strong every race there. And Harvick's won some races there. I don't know if Truex has won at Bristol yet. That I'm not sure.
Well, if you don't know, I definitely don't know.
Well, so it just might, it might not be the strong 3 as, the 1.5 mile tracks have shown this year, or actually what the season's shown.
Yeah.
But, Kyle Busch seems to be tearing up everything that he puts the car on every track. So
Harvick, and Truex are just dominant right now.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us today. We appreciate everybody joining us. If you miss any portion of today's show, you can always catch it on YouTube when we get it posted up on our page tomorrow morning at about 10 a.m. We'll be back next weekend to do it all over again, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to announce our next Crewman for a Day contest. We have approval through Kansas Speedway. We're just working on what team we're going to partner up with to get our winners down there, and we do have tickets to give away for that race. So a lot of great stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks.
And, hey, if anybody's going out to do a little racing and watching, get up to the Beaver. Buena Vista's race season is ending this Wednesday, and I'm going to personally try and go up. I've been wanting to get up there all year, and I didn't realize they ended their season quite so soon.
It sneaks up on you, doesn't it?
Oh, this summer has just disappeared.
Yep.
This summer's been flying by.
Yeah, September's just around the corner. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you white knuckle racing by the river bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.